Namaste. Welcome to Satsang. So just to be clear in our aim in Satsang, and that is to gather together. It literally means to gather together in truth. And Sat comes from the word truth, or means truth. And Sang is a shortened form of Sangha, which means gathering or group. So it's really Satsanga, but it's gathering together in truth to begin to realize and to live as that which we really are, which is not a mind or a body, and yet includes our mind and body. And Satsang has been done throughout all of the ages, and everywhere it's arisen spontaneously for those seeking the truth, and for those finding truth, most importantly, that we already are. What we're searching for is the most important thing to recognize, to see it and to be it, and to prove to everyone, the more awakened beings we have. Of course, there's only one awakened being, and it's experiencing itself through many bodies, but for want of a better way to explain, the more awakened beings we have in this day and age, the more people are going to believe that it's possible for them. And of course, it's possible for us, for everyone that wants it, because we are already it. We're only coming to see what we already are and what we're not, which is a separate person alone and trying to find our way back to that one being. If there's really only one being, we never split from that at all. That's the biggest lie of all, the original assumption, the original belief that at some point, me and the infinite self went our separate ways, as if such a thing were possible, as if that which sustains the whole cosmos is capable of dividing itself, and it really is not. Its form, your form, is the cosmos, not just one body and mind. You're appearing as all of it. That's the purpose of satsang. It is the highest thing that we could be spending our time doing, or realizing, or seeing. And it's just a clearer seeing of who you already are. And perhaps a clearer seeing of who you're not. Letting go of the stories about who we thought we were. And for those brave enough to be willing to let go of their stories and to live in this place with no reference point, what's the reward of that? Well, freedom, peace, joy, love, deep sense of intimacy and richness, and feeling truly blessed. So I want to dive into some questions that have been sent in. With quite a few here, so we'll see how many I can get through. And if you want to send a question in for satsang, you can. They're always read out anonymously. And I read everyone out. There's never one missed on purpose anyway. We might have missed one accidentally over the years. So if you have sent a question in, it will be read out at some point, and always anonymously. So that's another reason why people, either if you can't make it live to a satsang, or you want to ask a question, but you don't want to ask it with your name on it. Either way. So the first one says, hello, Helen, I am retired, so I have plenty of time to dedicate to meditation, still or on the move. The recognition of being is not always the same. Sometimes it looks sharper and sometimes more diffuse. Should this recognition become increasingly clear over time, or not necessarily? Thanks. So the recognition of who you already are, I'm not 100% certain what you mean by sharper or sometimes more diffuse. If you're talking about the obviousness of the recognition, for me, every time I saw what I was seeing the same thing, the same no-thingness, I should say, that I am, formlessness. So every time we have a seeing of who we really are, it's the same being that we're recognizing, but our body and mind experience that seeing differently. So it may come with different flavors. Some might be sharper and some more diffuse. So for me, each time I saw who I was, there was an aspect or a flavor. Even that word isn't really that good because who I really am, who you are, doesn't have any attributes at all. It's appearing as all of this universe, but it isn't really any of it. But sometimes it would seem to be emphasizing its effortlessness. Like I'm literally not doing, I'm just here. Sometimes it would seem to show me its loving capacity, my loving capacity. Sometimes it would show me its everythingness. Sometimes it's nothingness, and on it went. And it's still, every time I recognize myself, I'm saying it, but I mean me or you. You could use your name or any name instead of it. And it became more obvious, more clear in terms of this is what I've always been. Every time I saw who I already am, it was just less wow and more, that's how I've always been. It never gets old. It never gets tiring or boring. In fact, it gets more spectacular every single time. But it became less of a surprise or a revelation and more just, it's obviously how I've always been. As the seekingness falls away, it's sharper in that way. It's just obviously what's always been. So much so that you don't even feel any need to tell anyone about it, unless you happen to find yourself teaching, of course. Most awakened beings would probably never say anything about the fact that they've recognized who they are, because the person who would want to claim victory or notice progress has disappeared over time. It's just a bunch of thoughts anyway, that person. So it's sharper in that way. Maybe more diffuse, as in less trying to get anywhere with that seeing. I'm not trying to mark an arrival at an end place. More diffuse, as in this is what I've always been, so it doesn't matter if it takes a second or 100,000 years to recognize it. It's all the same from who I really am. But it will become increasingly clear over time. If it isn't, if that recognition isn't becoming more obvious, first thing to look at is if the practice that you're doing to try to recognize it is being done correctly. So self-inquiry or meditation are two of the fastest ways, self-inquiry being the fastest to come to recognize who you really are, to see your own formlessness, your own intangibility. That in which the body and mind are appearing is what you really are. But our mind has a capacity infinitely to try to complicate very simple practices. Self-inquiry is the simplest of all. Look and see what you actually are. It's not a remembering of a previous seeing. It's not a thinking about or an analyzing. It is so direct, it's like looking in the mirror to see who's looking back. When you look in the bathroom mirror, it doesn't take any time to see your reflection. It's instantaneous. So we look and see, what am I beyond this mind and body? And we don't find any entity, any person living in the body. There's just the body and this formlessness. So just double check and see, is the practice that you're doing, has it been diluted and watered down by the mind's capacity to make it more complex? And there's a whole list here on, when this goes up on YouTube, there's a self-inquiry playlist on there and a guided meditation playlist, just to help stay with that simplicity. Because the hardest thing for a human being to do is to stay with something simple enough, something very simple, long enough consistently to have a clear seeing of who we are. And that long enough consistently can only sometimes be a few days. But we tend to want to change the practice. Our resistance to our inquiry or meditation will complicate the procedure. And that's certainly was the case for me. So if it's not getting clearer over time, please write back in. Or it may be something I've said already has helped you to understand. So, okay, we'll go to the next one. Hello, Helen. Would you agree with this formulation? Open quotes. At the precise moment of the experience, in brackets, thinking, feeling, and perceiving, we are alone. There is no ego. There is no witness, only pure attention. It is after the experience that the sensation of personal authorship, of ego remains. Then the experience would always be non-dual, therefore it would always be real. Consciousness shares its reality with experience. End quotes. Question, if this is my conviction, why does the feeling of being someone still persist? So at the precise moment of the experience, thinking, feeling, and perceiving, we are alone. There's no ego. There's no witness, only pure attention. It is after the experience that the sensation of personal authorship, of ego remains. Then the experience would always be non-dual. Therefore, it would always be real. I must admit, I'm struggling to understand that a little bit. Only pure attention. In my experience before, the personal authorship of any experience, the ownership as well, is pretty much there all the time until it wasn't. Perhaps, well, not so much after the experience, it was just a sense of an I, a separate I that was experiencing whatever was being perceived. Consciousness shares its reality with experience. For that statement to be true, there'd have to be two things there. Consciousness shares its reality with experience. But to me, consciousness is experiencing. It is experiencing without an experiencer, just experiencing. Like right now, the senses are taking in feedback, sensory input. And something is aware of that, right? As you're listening to this and watching this, there's something taking in the senses, the information. It's experiencing, it's watching, it's seeing. Maybe that's what you mean by consciousness, shares its reality with experience. And there's just no entity doing that when we look. There's no person experiencing. There's just actual experiencing going on, belonging to nobody, having no location, as if the formless no-thingness is actually sentience itself. It is that which is experiencing. The body and mind are borrowing their intelligence from that. So to answer your question, if this is my conviction, why does the feeling of being someone still persist? Well, even now for me, there's a feeling of being someone. There's a sense, a very playful, light sense that you and I are different and that we're having a conversation, two of us, but it's just a playful sense. If yours isn't a playful sense of a person, if it's still very heavy and there's a lot of suffering going on, then it probably just needs to be seeing clearer who you already are. What do you mean when you say consciousness? Is it my consciousness or yours or just consciousness? Can you actually find a separate self that's experiencing anything? Seems to be there's an I here experiencing something else. And we really, really believe in this dividing line between me and my experience. That can you actually find it? Can you find a division between what is known and who is knowing it. Our mind really likes to believe in an in here and an out there, and it keeps that division alive in thoughts. By thinking about what we experience, we maintain this artificial, illusionary separation. And when I think about things, they seem separate to me. And the more they seem separate to me, the more I'll want to think about them. So on and on it goes. So I hope that's helpful. There might always be a sense of a someone here that doesn't need to be gotten rid of. It could even be a useful thing once we realize it's not an actual entity. It's just a sense of a someone that arises from having a body and maybe thoughts and sense perception going on. So it might be there always until the body drops, but it's very light and even useful. And we have kind of referred to it as a software program for the body, helps the body move around in the world. So I hope that helps. Next one. Dearest Helen, can you please refine this for us? We move away from conscious thought and rest in the noumenon, but this still feels like two experiences. How do we keep attention on the real without the mind seeming a second phenomenon? Is it that it is all one, but thoughts are of lesser value? So all one, but we choose infinite. Something like that. Thank you as always. So if you don't know this word noumenon, it's a word that I liked when I was really, really seeking, because it didn't have any background, didn't have any baggage attached to it. Noumenon just means that which is not a phenomenon, that in which all phenomena appear. And if you don't like it, it's totally okay. You can use God, divinity, supreme self, silence, consciousness, presence, beingness, whichever. So how do we keep attention on the real without mind seeming like a second phenomenon? So if you take your attention right now to what is real, maybe that's whichever way you access that, through direct inquiry, finding out what you are, or by listening to the silence in between these words, or by noticing the emptiness around the forms. Whichever way you do that, if you put your attention on what is real and permanent and unchanging, really absorb your attention in it. And tell me then if there's any phenomena left from there. Phenomena that are separate. Is there such a thing called mind? When you are this that is. Does this formless awareness, I'm going to call it for now, does it have any second phenomenon? Does it see a thought as a thought? Does it see a body as a body? Or does it see sculptures made out of itself, no different than itself? Because if we're seeing a second phenomenon, there's the awareness of mind or thought, then we haven't fully really recognized the awareness as much as we could. Awareness has no edges. It is formless and boundaryless and infinite. And the very fact that it goes on forever in all directions, up, down, left, right, northeast, southwest, always being here, here right now, always will be here, the only thing that exists. Would you still call it mind from there then? What happens to all the dictionary of nouns, naming, labels from there? Do you know what this is from there? And at first, when I asked myself this question, I was really convinced, yeah, there's awareness of a body, a thought. When I actually really looked deeper and deeper, If awareness is everywhere at all times and can never be absent from anywhere, the real self, there can be no second. And then mind is just another synonym for awareness. And all the nouns in all the languages, all the labels are synonyms for awareness, consciousness, presence. So all one, but we choose infinite. Can you see the duality in that statement? Even to say awareness is appearing as mind is a little too strong. Eventually, you won't even want to say that. It's just awareness. A cloud in the sky might look like 100,000 things. Sometimes it looks like a snake and then an elephant, and then you can see a face in it. And then as it's passing you by, it's changing, but it's still non-different than the cloud. So dive a little deeper into that real self, that noumenon, that awareness, and see if they're from there, not looking at it as an imaginary separate self, but from the real self itself, the infinite emptiness of your being. Is there anything else there to see? The analogy that helped me also was, if I am the infinite ocean, am I really going to call a wave on top of a wave? Or am I just going to recognize it's all ocean, it's all water, it's all one? So hope that's a bit clearer. It's not always so easy to see at first. But if you look from the infinite, there's nowhere else to look than, nothing else to see. Infinite means infinite. If there's something other than infinite, it's not infinite, it's finite. There's awareness and. The moment we go and or awareness of, or awareness or mind, we're back into duality and we're imagining again that there is something other than you, awareness. So, okay, on to, okay, it's quite a long one. So if anybody would like to ask a question, feel free to raise your hand. I'll read this one. We'll see how many hands are up. Take a maximum of 4 hands online here. Feel free to raise your hand here if you want to, as I read this. Dear Helen, thank you for all you are doing to support the awakening process for so many in the world. I'm relatively new to your teachings, but like many have been on the path for years. I'm finding the teachings so simple and direct, for which I'm so grateful, but I'm really struggling with a couple of things that seem to keep getting in the way. The things I'm struggling with are my job and my marriage. These feel like such big parts of my life. Yet both feel like I'm not in the right place, and the mind has so much to say about both of them. They've been getting gradually worse. I've been trying to work with both in terms of acceptance, being present and aware. But it seems perhaps with how I feel now that I've just been suppressing things, and now I feel desperate. I feel the main purpose of my life is a spiritual one, and that these things are getting in the way. I'm finding that listening to the silence is my doorway, and I've found this so helpful. Yet I still have this continual nagging outside of meditation. And when it's intense in meditation, that I need to make a decision about these, that I can't go on with this underlying dissatisfaction, irritation, and discontent. Part of me wants to move on from both, see where life takes me, whilst also being scared of the unknown, of how that might be, as I have no idea where I will live, money, etc. Another part seems to know that there is a lot of conditioning energy behind both, and that if I can just surrender fully and be with this intense discomfort these bring, I can start to be clearer on what to do. This is what I've been trying to do for quite a while now, but I just seem to end up back at square one, and more time has passed. I live with the sense that I don't have long. So the idea I'm wasting my time is very uncomfortable and adds to the pressure. I started to feel more desperate that something needs to change. And this is having a huge impact, not only on the quality of life, but also on those around me. Any thoughts and guidance on this would be very welcome. I feel very stuck and don't want to do something I later regret. With thanks and love. So, whichever area of our life seems to be getting worse as our awakening deepens, is trying to show us that there's some thought being believed, that life is now asking us to move towards looking at through contemplation. So I'm going to make a statement which may seem absurd, but is nonetheless true. So we're not actually suffering from our job or our marriage relationship. We're suffering from what we think about our marriage and our relationship. And that's good news, because if it was your marriage or your job specifically, then there might be very little we can actually do to change that. And I'm not saying you should stay at a job forever that you don't like, or in a marriage that isn't working. But first be clear on what thoughts are coloring your experience of that relationship or that career, that job. Being clear first about that. And then you can freer to make a real, allow a real decision to arise as to what's right. And quite often, when the thoughts have stopped being believed, you can, there's a certain knowing this is what's supposed to happen and this is what's not supposed to happen. It's much clearer sometimes. So all human beings, when we've believed that we're a separate being, everything that we're doing in the world, our relationships, our career, our family, everything, whether we realize it or not, we're doing it to get something from that thing. So we might be in a relationship to help us feel loved. We want to feel loved and lovable, or to help us feel safe, or to make us feel worthy. We might be using our job to make us feel worthy, good enough. If I succeed at my job, I'll feel better about myself. If I've got a good paycheck coming in, I'll feel, or any paycheck, I'll feel safer. On and on it goes. So the easiest way to approach this is to look at what negative emotions you feel, because they will be whispering or shouting about a belief that is hidden deep down at the moment. And you mentioned desperation here already. And the reason it kind of goes on for so long and it gets worse after awakening is because we think about these things in duality and cause and effect. We think, if I could just find the right job, I would feel better. And the job is the cause out there, and how I feel is in here. And we think they're two different things. You are everywhere and infinite, so it's all you. Or if my marriage was going better, then I would feel more loved. And if I could find the right person to be with, I'd feel a certain way that I don't feel right now. Well, sometimes we flip it the other way. If I could be better than I am because I don't feel good enough, then I could excel at my job, or my marriage would be better. Sometimes, but either way, both of those, there's two things. There's a cause and an effect. So we need to find out what the emotion is that's underneath all of this. Desperation you've mentioned. Not desperation about your marriage or your job, just desperation, because inside and outside are one. If you keep saying I'm desperate about this thing out there, or fearful or sad or whatever, we're never going to really resolve it. And that's why it's coming up really loudly now, intensely in our awakening. We've been asked to let go of this dualistic thinking. And what's the emotion? What does desperation say to you? Not about your job or your marriage, just desperation. If you just feel it in your body, what does it say? How does it feel about life? And for me, there was this belief here in desperation, which I felt many times: jealousy, desperation, hopelessness, apathy about whether I could even reach awakening. Desperation said, there's just really no point. I just have to somehow get what I need. But it wasn't a positive, like even anger would have felt better. Desperation was just hopelessness and apathy in disguise. There's no point in really trying, it said. There's no point. You're not going to get what you want, ever. Later, I felt it as anger, as I've been contemplating for a while, and it felt much more dynamic. And then later, still just a little irritation, and then not at all. So I suggest looking for what emotion you feel and looking for the story behind it, not attaching it to anything that's going on in your outside world. We're not desperate because we're just desperate. And there's a symptom of feeling like a separate being. I've got to get back to the self, or I've got to find the right marriage or whatever to make me feel a certain way. But these beliefs are the only thing that are causing us to feel bad in the first place. The belief reflects as the emotion and reflects as the experience. So the belief and the emotion and the outer world thing are all the same thing appearing three ways. The infinite self appearing three different ways. Can't change the job, can't change the emotion, but you can contemplate if the idea that both are reflecting as is actually true. Another way to do this that might be even easier is to ask, what are you looking for from your job? If you found a perfect job, how would you feel that you don't feel now? If you found Mr. or Mrs. Right, how would you feel that you don't think you can feel now? Whatever we're trying to get from something, life is asking us to stop trying to get it from that person or that thing. As we're realizing who we really are, it all comes from the inside out. There's no other being to get it from anyway, not separate to you. When I really realized this, it just made sense to switch over and come back to, what am I trying to get from this person or this thing? Do I want them to make me feel safe? If so, it's because I feel I'm unsafe. I'm not safe on my own. Do I want them to make me feel loved, appreciated, valued, respected? On and on it goes. And that kind of thinking works for separate beings for a little while, but not when we've realized who we really are. And life is going to ask you to upgrade your relationships as part of your awakening, to not trying to get, but allowing it to come forth. And trying to bargain with each other as human beings like we do. If you make me feel safe, I'll give you respect. And if you make me feel loved, I will value you. And there's this unconscious negotiation going on, which isn't really a relationship. Perhaps it's the best we're capable of, and we think we're separate beings. A real relationship is, I'm just here and you're here, and let's enjoy ourselves together, coming from a place of fullness and richness without actually needing anything from each other. So I'm not clinging or trying to change. When I realize that you can't make me feel safe, I'm not going to try even harder to put demands upon you. I'm going to let you be as you are. So have a ponder about that. And there are a whole playlist on YouTube of contemplation, the technique of using contemplation. So if we take the belief that comes from the emotion, I'm not safe, I'm not good enough, I can't get what I want, I've lost what I need to be happy, whatever it is that the emotion tells you in its most basic form. As if fear was a person, or sadness or despair, what would it say to you? How does it feel about life? Its general attitude to life, not to any particular thing. And then you turn that into a question, is that really true, actually? And we did a satsang 2 or 3 satsangs ago. All we did was contemplation. So you can check that out too. Okay. I'll leave these for now. We have a couple more. We'll see if we get time. We'll go to Don, who's got his hand up first. Whenever you're ready, Don. Hi,
Yes.
Don. Hi.
Hi. Um, was, really kind of confused. I want to get some clarity on what you're thinking about relationships. And so, like, if you're not in a neediness situation, is a primary relationship important? Is it or if I'm not wanting anything and not needing anything, is it complementary? Like one of my teachers, or a guy who was kind of an American mystic named Lester Levinson, says the only reason to be in a relationship is for the awakening of the other person if you're awakened. And I'm trying to understand the meaning of what's an optimum kind of situation for someone who's awakened or awakening. How is like a how, and like you just said, wanting keeps you, anytime you're wanting something from someone, it becomes some sort of quid pro quo or something like that. Can you give me a little bit more room around or ideas around that?
Specifically, what would be the purpose for a relationship, do you mean? Or
Yes, exactly. For like a primary, like opposite sex or same sex, if that's, if you're more on that scale.
well, I can only ever speak from my own experience, which has been a transformation of all my relationships, like literally all of them. And it moved from trying to get something from all of those people, sometimes several things, demanding three things, like I need you to make me feel loved and safe and respected or something. And it turned all those relationships upside down and began to use the apparent relationship, it being my real self, the apparent relationship, two bodies in whichever type of relationship it was, as an exploration of love, a deepening of love, and a capacity to, like it wanted to explore and play as in the form of a relationship, knowing that it wasn't separate. Even if only one of you is awake to who we really are, then in that relationship, still, it will want to express love, and it will do that so much more joyfully with two beings, whether that's a romantic relationship or a family member or even our boss at work. And of course, our boss, we might not call it love, we might call it respect or mutual admiration or whatever word is appropriate there. But there's only one reason that the infinite self does anything, and that's to express itself as love, as joy, as intimacy. So, don't know if that gives you a flavor.
Yeah, it does. I wanted to hear a little more about it because I see a lot of awakened, like Adi Shanti, and people in relationships, and my experience is that could enhance and the joy and share the joy.
Yeah, anything is multiplied, but it's only an enhancement of what's already here, right? It's a celebration then as a relationship, not a bargaining, like you said, that quid pro quo. I can never say that. Not that back and forth negotiation. It's a celebration, and
Right.
it's a glorious thing then, and it's never never reaches an end. It can always deepen and express itself more through that relationship.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I'm really grateful for your teaching and all our satsang. So
Thank you. Wonderful. Good to talk to you. We'll go to Lean.
Hello, Helen.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you so much for your teaching.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a question also about contemplation. I started practicing contemplation just some weeks ago. I didn't know that beforehand. And I found it very interesting, in fact. So at first I started practicing with some emotions and then beliefs underneath. And I noticed it was very helpful to bring space around it, and I saw that it's moved towards silence
Mhm.
when I did that. And then some days ago, sorry, there's something appearing. Some days ago, I suddenly noticed there was a belief under this belief I was looking at.
Mhm.
And it was a little bit shocking because it was quite an intense belief. And I've been practicing with this belief for a couple of days now. And I mean, I know in fact it's not true. So I know also it's not a problem. But what I do notice is that it's yeah, when I practice with it, it doesn't move towards at a certain point towards silence or spaciousness. It's very intense, and it's keeps on being quite intense. And I mean, I can just let it happen because I know it's not true, but I do experience it strongly, and I can also see how, yeah, how it has colored life before, when there was a lot of suffering before. But I also find it confusing because there's not a lot of suffering now. But I see that this belief is still there, and I don't know why it doesn't move towards silence or towards, you know.
You say you've excuse me, you experience it intensely. Can you explain what you mean by that? Is it an emotion, or is it a lot of thoughts, or is it both?
Intensely, mainly emotional, but especially kind of physical. Like it feels like physically as if like um, yeah, it's a bit as if it's eating me from the inside. It sounds a bit strange, but
Oh,
it's
I get that. Don't worry. Yeah, I've done that.
it's
So,
yeah, quite aggressive, and like it brings a pure hopelessness and feeling of not wanting to live. And I mean, because I know it's not true, it's okay, but it's just, yeah, intense in that sense.
so what's probably happening is that the question isn't exactly the right one. Probably what the emotion is that we should be working from is the hopelessness and the I forgot the other word you used, but it's not the belief bringing this thing up, because that would be two things. So the belief and the emotion are not different, they're one and the same.
Mhm.
So let's zero in on the hopelessness itself. You might not feel it so strongly right now, but just remembering when it's like really being felt by the body,
Mhm.
just letting go of the other question for now. Because if the question isn't bringing you to deeper peace, as you said, overall, of course there'll be good days and bad days, but if it isn't bringing you to deeper peace and silence, it's probably that we haven't quite got the right question.
Mhm.
So what's the emotion you described? You said hopelessness and something else.
Yeah, just in fact, when I started contemplation, I started with loneliness because that's what I'm just experiencing regularly in life, or before, or yeah, if there's something difficult, it's loneliness. But
Mhm.
because of this new question, it was more hopelessness.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
So if you just kind of tune into that hopelessness now as much as you can,
Mhm.
what does it want to say to you? What's the idea? Not about anything out there, just sheer raw hopelessness. How does it feel about life?
Feels like there's no point in living. Feels yeah, like I don't want to be alive.
Why not? I know that's a strange question, but
Mhm. There's nothing out there for me.
what is it that we would be looking for out there? What would it be that would make it worth living if you had it?
Love,
Yeah.
connection.
So how does it feel to, if we ask it, is it really true I can't feel love, I can't have love or connection? How does that question feel?
It feels like, yes, it's true.
So it's usually a sign we've got the right question because it feels, yeah, very, very true at first, right? When you first start with it. And of course we keep experiencing that, right? Hence the loneliness,
Mhm.
the hopelessness, despair, whatever word we put to that. So do you want to just sit with that question together, the two of us? Let's see what happens.
Yeah, I would like that. Yeah.
And let's just go through whatever answers come to that question, we're going to just let them all come. We're not going to look for a right or wrong answer.
Mhm.
And if you don't mind sharing with us what comes up through that, we can begin to bring some light to it. So, is it true I can't have love? Which word feels better, love or connection? Or which word feels more important right now?
Love.
Okay, so let's ask that together then. And everyone else can do this if it's relevant. I know this is very relevant for me at a certain point. Is it really true I can't have love? Let's just see what happens when we ask this question.
Yes, it's true. And when I say this, I feel it here in my body, like something is really pushing hard.
So you've got two types of answers there already. There's a thought that says, yes, it's true, thought answer, and a physical answer, a sensation answer, right? Something here inside. Yeah.
Mm.
So just noticing that and just staying with the question anyway. No right or wrong answers. And we're not looking for a final answer. We're just exploring this question. Is it really true I can't have love?
Yeah, there's a sense of hopelessness coming and a feeling of like as if my body just wants to dissolve and disappear.
So an emotional answer and another physical answer. These are not pleasant, obviously, to feel, but we're doing our best just to be with them, coming back to the question anyway. Is it really true I can't have love?
When you say it now, I feel like something coming from here, like it's kind of like I can't take it. A feeling of
Yeah.
it's too much, and no, like I can't like this.
So we could say maybe that's just like an answer of resistance, like no, I don't want to look at this. I really no, like, and normally perhaps we might listen to that. We might forget the question or go watch some telly or something without realizing. But let's just stay with that. And we're allowing that no as best we can, another type of answer. And all answers are the equal. There's no special or right or wrong. And you're doing great. Let's just stay with the question and see what happens. Is it really true I can't have love?
Sorry, I don't know why I'm laughing.
It's an answer too. It's an answer, right?
Yes.
Enjoy it. It's okay.
Okay. Just suddenly seems a bit absurd.
So can you feel in that moment, you can't quite believe it anymore, right? Something has shifted.
Mhm.
The question is a bit daft now. Still, part of me believes it, but part of me is like, no, obviously that's not true. You're kind of in both camps at the moment, right? First, we were right in this is very true. And the laughter is just another answer. It's more enjoyable than hopelessness, but still just another answer. Let's stay with the question anyway, just for a little while longer. Is it really true I can't have love?
I don't know, in fact.
And that's very different, isn't it? When we started this, you were really certain you couldn't. It felt very true.
Mhm.
So in just,
Is it blank or something? It's like I don't have an answer.
and how does that feel? Not
Mm,
having an answer. Is it terrible?
no, it's calm and peaceful. No?
Mhm.
I mean, I still feel at the same time, I still feel like a physical sensation, a bit like what I felt before, but it's just a physical sensation.
It's different, right? Even that kind of contraction is experienced differently, that heaviness. It's just a sensation, like you said.
Mhm.
So even just a few minutes of hanging out with this question, something has profoundly shifted.
Yeah.
I can't really believe this with as much conviction as I did.
Mhm.
And the question's even starting to seem a little bit daft. Like, really? How did I ever believe that?
Yeah.
And we're not claiming, okay, we've gone from totally believing it to totally free of it, but you can feel your body's telling you, I can't quite give that as much seriousness as I did.
Mhm.
So in fact, we're only really suffering from what we are sure of. And before we question it, we're sure that it's true.
Mhm.
If we question it, we're saying, I don't actually know if this is true. We're only suffering from what we know. And as you just experienced, now like I don't actually know, and it's light and it's okay. I don't have to know, right? Like, why would I want to know anything when I can feel like this just by questioning gently?
Mhm. Mhm. But the interesting thing is that while you're asking and while I'm saying in the beginning when I said yes, I believe it. I mean, I felt completely I believed it, but in the during the moments that you asked me, I also felt something larger. Like I don't know how to say it, but like I also knew that it was not really true, even though I believed it completely. I
Yeah,
don't know if you understand what I mean, but
absolutely. Yeah, because we're aware of our real nature that doesn't believe anything, not limited by any thought at all, can't believe anything. But we're also aware of the small sense of a separate self that is still quite invested in these beliefs. So we're asking the question not to free ourselves from them because we were never caught. There's something that obviously is free already, but to just bring attention away. What is it to believe this story? It's really to put a lot of attention on it. So we ask the question just as a way to bring attention away and allow attention to open up again. And more and more, we're just disentangling this thought constructed self that's made up of a bunch of stories that we thought were very, very true. The contemplation is to help the ego dissolve itself, just to become more fluid and open, the separate self. So when you're contemplating, you might get this, is it really true I can't find love? Well, no, of course not. I am love. But also something inside goes, yeah, it's really true, really, really true. And we might even be experiencing it, right? Loneliness and failed relationships or whatever that looks like for each of us. Just not judging which one of those is better. Okay, some part of me really actually still believes this, and I'd like to help that part of me out and just free it up, disentangle all these energies that have got caught up.
And so you is it best then also to just continue just like regularly, or when the emotion comes up to question it, or just generally regularly keep on questioning it, just like now, just doing this contemplation practice, or?
At least every time it kind of gets triggered, it's good to ask if we can remember, because sometimes with a strong emotion, you can't remember anything, right? It's just like, oh, this is so true. You wouldn't even think to question. But if you can, or later when it's calmed down a little bit, then question. And for me, with some of the big ones like this, because loneliness and despair were like my best friends the whole way through. Unwanted friends, of course, but I found it really helpful just to sit for 5 minutes a day or whatever time I had and to try to remember this question as often as possible. Just until I literally stopped having that experience, didn't feel that way anymore. And my life was starting to change in the outer world as well as a reflection of it.
Mm-hmm.
If I really feel I can't have love or a connection or intimacy, it's going to affect all of our lives, right? Because the first intimacy is with ourselves, our real self. It's going to affect our awakening, our relationships, everything. So a little bit each day, and definitely when it's kind of triggered, when it's strong inside. Wonderful. Thank you so much for demonstrating that so well. And just gradually, as we stay with the question, there's going to be more laughter and less tears, less contraction. And even before this feeling goes in here, it doesn't matter, right? Really, it's just a sensation. It's no different than an itch or a sneeze. It's only the mind that would want to get rid of this feeling, but it'll soften then and dissolve anyway. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay. So there are no more hands up there. I will leave it there for today. And we've had lots of very intelligent questions sent in and asked here online live. Just want to remind you of who you already are and who you are only coming to see that you've always been. That's a very different thing than having to actually manage your own awakening. So just always want to remember that as much as we can. I'm not having to do anything. I'm only seeing what's already real about me. So thank you. Namaste.